Okay, so you sent us the PAI morning briefing dated April 7th, 2025. So we're going to dive into that today.
Yeah, we'll unpack that and look for those key signals and insights.
Exactly, and help you make sense of the market as we see it here at Pantheon AI.
Right, and this briefing lays out the major market moves and some of the emerging trends we're watching.
It's a great high-level view from our PAI analysts, and
Now we'll kind of go a bit deeper with it.
yes, so speaking of high-level view, the briefing starts off with the S&P 500.
Uh-huh.
It's up around 1.68% to 52,373.
A healthy climb.
Yeah, and the Dow Jones is down just under 0.4% at 37740.46.
Interesting.
But the Nasdaq is really surging, almost 4% to around 150,572.
It's a big jump.
It is, and the briefing says this is partly a rebound from that tariff-driven turbulence last week.
Yeah, I mean, the big takeaway right away is this kind of divergence that we're seeing, especially with the Nasdaq so strong.
Right. It's really tech-heavy.
Exactly. While the Dow is more traditional industrial companies.
Yes.
It's a really interesting snapshot of the market right now.
So, what about crypto?
Well, Bitcoin is down just slightly, 0.1% to around $78,253.
Okay.
And Ethereum is down a little more, almost 2% to about $1,549.
So basically holding steady compared to the
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
yeah, all the ups and downs in the stock market.
Yeah, it just goes to show that even crypto can have periods of relative stability.
So this is our jumping off point, right?
Yeah, let's use this PII briefing and see where it takes us.
Perfect. One thing that really jumps out is this talk of an economic slowdown. There's this growing narrative, and it seems like everyone's getting a little nervous.
You're right. It's something that's been on our radar at PantheonAI for a while now.
The briefing even calls it a loud echo in the boardrooms.
A lot of it has to do with, geopolitical issues.
Right, and specifically these new tariffs.
They keep coming up.
Yeah, and there's a CNBC CEO Council survey mentioned
Oh, yeah, that was interesting.
where a lot of top execs are predicting a recession.
It really shows that these fears are coming from the very top.
Exactly. This isn't just, a few analysts making predictions.
Right. These are people running massive companies.
And they're worried about how tariffs are going to affect their bottom line.
And there are a lot of very real concerns.
The briefing mentions things like profit margins being squeezed, higher prices for consumers,
Potentially.
and even job losses.
Yeah, those are all very real possibilities.
And what's really interesting is how often we're seeing the phrase, the Trump recession.
Oh, yeah, that's all over the headlines now.
It really just shows how politically charged this whole conversation is.
Absolutely.
Now, in addition to this economic uncertainty, our briefing points to Jim Cramer's top 10 things to watch on Monday.
Always a good idea to see what he has to say.
Yeah, and this comes right after what they're calling tariff-driven carnage.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in the markets last week. So his list is really interesting in this context.
At PantheonAI, we always pay attention to what's on Cramer's radar because it gives you a good sense of where the market's head is at.
Right.
And the fact that he's releasing this list right after such a volatile week really shows that investors are on edge right now.
The briefing makes this great analogy about the market playing whack-a-mole with headlines.
Oh, I love that.
It's so true. You never know what's going to pop up next.
Yeah, you deal with one piece of news and then bam, another one hits you.
So in this kind of environment, having someone like Cramer highlight what to focus on can be really helpful.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit and talk about this interesting development in crypto.
Okay.
So there's this publicly traded software company,
Uh-huh.
and they're trying to become the MicroStrategy of Solana.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a bold strategy, right?
Very bold.
MicroStrategy is, of course, known for their huge Bitcoin holdings.
Right.
So this company is basically trying to do the same thing, but with Solana. And the people behind it have a lot of experience in crypto, so they definitely know what they're doing.
That's good.
But the question is, can they really pull it off?
The crypto market is so competitive.
Yeah.
And it can change so quickly.
Right. One tweet can send prices soaring or plummeting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see how this plays out.
Now, on the international front, the briefing mentions a tariff offer from the EU.
Oh, yeah. What's happening there?
Well, Sefcovic from the EU said they're offering a 0-for-0 tariff arrangement with the U.S.
Wow.
on cars and industrial goods.
That's huge.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal.
So they're basically saying they'll eliminate tariffs if the U.S. does the same.
Exactly.
That's interesting.
It shows that the EU is open to talks, but they want it to be fair.
Right. It has to be reciprocal.
And the briefing points out that if these negotiations don't go well, it could really disrupt global supply chains.
Yeah, that's a major concern.
So we'll have to see what happens.
Definitely something to keep an eye on.
Now, the briefing also mentions a big leadership change at Spirit Airlines.
Oh, what happened?
Well, Ted Christie, their CEO, has stepped down. This comes as they're emerging from bankruptcy protection.
Interesting timing.
Yeah, it could signal a shift in strategy for the company.
Yeah, new CEO, new direction.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see where they go from here.
And all of these developments really highlight how differently various sectors are performing. The Nasdaq and the tech sector are still doing really well.
Yeah, they're on a roll.
Driven by all this innovation and growth.
Right, and they seem to be almost immune to these broader market anxieties.
Exactly.
Then you have the more traditional sectors.
Like industrials and financials.
Yeah, those are feeling the pressure.
From all the tariff uncertainty.
Of course.
And the complexities of global trade.
Yeah, makes sense. They're much more directly affected by things like tariffs.
Right, especially those industries with really complex global supply chains.
Exactly. Any increase in costs can really hit their bottom line.
And that could lead to those price hikes and job losses that CEOs are worried about.
It's all connected.
And speaking of interconnectedness, the briefing touches on the energy and finance sectors, too. Energy is, as always, reacting to geopolitics and policy shifts.
Yeah, never a dull moment there.
Which, of course, impacts things like consumer prices and industrial activity.
Makes sense.
And then finance is feeling a bit more volatile with all these changing policies.
Yeah, especially for banks and investment firms.
Right.
A lot to navigate.
It really is. So it's interesting, this contrast between, the excitement around tech and these worries about a potential slowdown.
A real dilemma for investors.
The briefing actually compares it to choosing between a roller coaster and a calm river cruise.
That's a great analogy.
Tech is that thrilling but risky roller coaster.
Yeah, you could see some big gains.
But it could also be a wild ride.
Definitely.
Well, the more traditional sectors are like that calm river cruise.
Well, it's stable.
But maybe not as much growth potential.
Right. It comes down to risk tolerance.
Exactly.
What are you comfortable with?
Now, the briefing makes it clear that this whole US-EU tariff situation is part of a much bigger global conversation.
About trade and competitiveness.
Exactly. And countries around the world are watching closely.
I have to.
Because whatever happens here could have a ripple effect.
It could change the whole game.
And the EU's 0 for 0 offer is being called a strategic move.
I like that.
It's not just about tariffs.
It's about sending a message.
Exactly. And it puts the pressure on the U.S. to respond.
It'll be interesting to see how they play it.
Now, the briefing also dives into how analysts are interpreting all of this.
Okay.
It's fascinating because there's this real split.
Between.
Well, some see the tech rally as proof that we're in a long-term digital transformation.
Right.
A fundamental shift.
And others are more focused on these recession fears.
Yeah, they're worried about the impact of tariffs and all that. So it's a real debate.
It really is.
And the big question is, are we seeing temporary fluctuations or structural shift?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is, and it's something you have to consider as you make your own investment decisions.
Absolutely.
Oh, I have to mention this. The briefing compares navigating the current market to a cat chasing its tail.
Oh, I love that.
It's so true. You try to chase these trends, but they're always just out of reach.
And the market just keeps spinning.
Exactly. So frustrating.
But also kind of funny when you think about it.
It is.
Okay, so to sum up the briefing, highlighted those mixed signals from the indexes, the slight dip in crypto, those CEO concerns about a potential Trump recession,
right,
and of course, Cramer's watch list.
We also talked about the contrast between tech doing so well and those more traditional sectors struggling.
The global implications of those US-EU tariff talks.
Yeah.
And those interesting developments in the crypto world.
So the big question, as always, is what does the future hold?
Recession or continued growth?
Yeah, it's the ultimate uncertainty.
And that's what we're all trying to figure out.
So for you, the listener, it comes down to a few things.
Like?
Well, how will those tariffs play out? Can the tech rally keep going?
Good question.
And how should you position your portfolio?
The briefing is really designed to help you answer those questions.
It's your information co-pilot, as it says.
So think about those key takeaways. How will tariffs impact the markets?
Are tech gains sustainable?
And what moves do you need to make?
Now, to leave you with something to really think about,
okay,
we talked about how interconnected the markets are.
Right, and how quickly things can change.
Exactly. So given all of that, What overlooked global event or emerging technology do you think could have the biggest impact on your financial future in the next year or two?
Something that maybe no one's even talking about yet.
Exactly.
That's a great question to ponder.
It is. So we'll leave you with that.